This episode comes with a trigger warning where we do talk about breath play, fear play, and some other sadomasochistic tendencies. So buckle up. And if any of you wish to engage or plan to engage in some of the stuff we've been talking about on this episode, please make sure you do your research and make sure you are as safe as possible and your play partners too.
You're listening to Fucks Given, the one with the Dom couple.
Ooh.
Do you remember them? Do you remember?
Imagine if I'd forgotten them. Like, that would be some senile actions. So for those of you who don't know, the Dom couple were a couple that I went on a date with and had a very fun sexual experience with. Ended up having a date and I went back to theirs and they were like the experienced Dom couple that like double dommed me, and there's a whole podcast episode where I talk about
that
it.
Was a great episode.
Yeah, it was insane.
Such a great episode.
I had so much energy in life.
Yeah, like after that we were just like, we need to get them on. Like there's just no... I'm really excited about it as well because we've never had anyone on the podcast before that either of us has slept with.
Yeah, I know, it's insane. This is going down in Fucks Given history.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
So we're going to find out what Reed is like in the bedroom, basically.
Yeah, whether or not I'm actually like just a 4 and I pretend to be a 10. Just like, I'm that floppy wet fish, bitch.
Yeah, it's going to be really great. We're going to get all the juicy details, Curious Burgers. Can't wait.
And some, I think we're going to get some good Dom tips as well because they're experienced players. So they know their shit. Like I've never felt safer in my life doing the most craziest shit.
Yeah, this is going to be really, really interesting.
Yeah,
so for anyone out there that's wanting to get into BDSM, kink, doming,
breath play,
like they are just going to give you all the tips, all the juicy tips.
Yeah, and safety tips as well.
I actually have something really funny to tell you all because, you know, last week's episode was all about anal sex. I literally
love the anal sex, as in to talk about it, not necessarily to have it.
Well.
Curious fuckers.
Later that day after the recording. The same day.
Whoa, that is some
I went to my friend's house and we had anal sex. We actually, this is, I was gonna say this doesn't sound like a very great like beginning to the anal sex story because it's like usually if you had loads of we went out for Taco Tuesday.
It's already a bad start. Fuck.
But as soon as you say something like that, you're like, oh, we know how this is gonna go. But it was actually just like, I mean, obviously my digestion doesn't work that quickly. Come on, guys.
I mean, people with IBS would beg to differ.
Yeah. And also these were vegan tacos, so it was like the best for your digestion that there could be. And yeah, so we ended up going back to his after Taco Tuesday and we were just chilling, watching TV, and he was like, should we do anal?
He said that.
Like, yeah.
He prompted.
He's super into it.
But had you spoken about
the
podcast?
I'd already... No, I didn't say anything about the podcast, which is why it's so random that it happened after the anal episode.
Crazy. All right.
Psychic. I hadn't even said psychic, literally. But you know, on that podcast, I had said, I was like, yeah, I'm seeing someone who is really into anal, so I probably will be having anal sometime soon. I didn't realize it was going to be that day.
That soon, that fresh. Okay, give us the juicy deets. Tell us everything.
You know what? I think it might have been the best anal sex that I've ever had.
That's amazing.
It was really good. And I came so quickly from it, probably too soon. I was like, I should have edged myself a little bit rather than getting like, because it was just turning me on so much. Basically, I was we tried, because the best experience that I had before was in like a missionary kind of situation. So I was like, maybe we should try maybe we should try that way. But because he's so tall, it wasn't really working that way. We were like, yeah, and I was like, hey, shall I just flip over? So I was in like the lazy bitch position,
our favorite position,
which for those that don't know, is just when you're flying flat on your stomach on the bed.
Flying as well. Or sometimes with a wand placed neatly on your clitoris. And you're lying on top
That
of the
would have
clits,
been
like, the best.
fucking perfect.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have any of my toys with me. I just had my hand like down between my legs, like ferociously like flicking the bean.
Trying to start a fucking fire. Like, please!
Literally trying to start a fire down there. And so he entered me in that position, like, and we just did it really, really slowly to start off with, and he was just like consistently checking in. Are you okay? Does it hurt? Like, and I was like, no, it's fine. Yeah, it's good.
You absolute anal whore. I'm loving this.
And I was just like, because I was stimulating my clit at the same time, I was just getting so turned on by the whole like, just like the idea that his dick was going in my ass.
Yeah.
Because it was such a surprise as well. Like, I wasn't really planning to have anal sex. And I was doing a lot of like breathing to like make myself relaxed and like just getting really into the fantasy of it in my head.
Nice.
And just being like, oh my God, yeah, he's putting like in my head, I was just like saying things to myself. Like, yeah, he's putting his dick inside you, like in your asshole. And
that focus, like the self innerlogue where you're just like, yeah, this is gonna happen. Yeah. That's so good.
And he was going really, I feel like he was going in slowly and it was getting deeper and deeper and deeper in my ass. And then like, I probably came, but I was like, I didn't make a big deal about it because I kind of like, I was trying not to come, and then I just sort of came because it was just really hot.
Yeah.
And but I was like, that's just a small one. I'll be able to do it again. And then I just couldn't do it again.
So tough.
So annoying.
That's
but
so frustrating.
It was still good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you came. That's amazing. That's so cool.
Yeah.
From me.
And but yeah, and then it got like he was going like deep, and I was like, oh, this is proper anal sex. Like he was doing the whole, he has like a great like way that he moves his hips, and like he was just like really kind of like rhythmically like pushing in a kind of like down and then up kind of motion.
So interesting.
Yeah, it was good. It was good times. Anything new on your side, Reed?
Sam and I went away for a little staycation in the UK. It was a surprise. I didn't know where I was going. And it was really nice. Like, he took me to an Airbnb in the middle of nowhere, which had a sauna, a double shower room with 2 showers, which is just obscene. Also, yeah, this sauna right next to the bedroom, which is weird. But we had a jacuzzi outside, which was really cool. So out in the middle of nowhere, we had llamas in the field next to us, which was jokes. And yeah, I was a bit nervous about the jacuzzi because jacuzzi and my vagina, they're not best friends, man. They don't like each other, but she was okay.
Was it?
She was
Yay!
okay. Yeah.
Good for her.
Yeah. But
well
I did,
done, girl.
I did have to state to Sam, I was like, okay, Sam, like, jacuzzis, they're cool, but, like, no fingering or no penetration around the jacuzzi, and if you want to do that, we're gonna have to wash. Like, please, can we wash? Because my vagina will be pissed off. And I've had PID from having sex in a hot tub before, and also mad UTIs and something else that's angry and vagina related. But anyway, so yeah, we did that. That was really fun. You know it's going to be a good getaway when your partner says, bring all the sex toys you own. And I was like, oh yeah. All right, motherfucker. I did. I packed thick. Most of my bag was sex toys, I swear, or sex apparatus. And then the next day we stayed in a really fancy hotel, which was also fun. He tied me to a motherfucking chair, and basically I've been masturbating over this fantasy of being tied to a chair, sat on a wand, and like forced to come over and over again whilst being tickled, of course, because my fetish. So he, he indulged me on most of that, which was amazing. Thank you very much.
Wow.
I was very happy. I was also unwell, which sucked. So
yeah,
it was trying to like, yes, this is amazing, and like I want to be fully present, but also all I need is a hot water bottle and bed. So that was a little tough. Unfortunate, but
I hate those situations.
It was I was pissed off. He was upset, of course, because we couldn't go the full hog. And obviously being out in the freezing cold in a jacuzzi, yes, I'm steaming out all of the virus, but I think it just made me 10 times worse because I'm still sick today. And it's been 5 days. I'm just like, fuck me, Christ. But
you're like,
yeah, the black lung. Been so pathetic these past few days. And I was feeling a bit like rubbish about it. But then he came over and surprised me last night, which was really nice. And he doesn't live close to me. He lives far and he's been stressed out because he's like moving. So it was just really nice.
Yeah.
I couldn't come to him over the weekend because I was still like, I'm still recovering. I can't do it. Like I literally can't do the journey. No. So he popped over, surprised me at mine, fucked me and then left. And it was the best thing ever. Like I just, for some reason, I don't know what it is about it, but I just love a quick fuck and then like my own space afterwards. I don't know what it is. And so that was just perfect. And I was just like, you're amazing. Thank you very much.
I love you. Bye.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Oh, you don't say that yet.
Not yet. Although I did almost accidentally say it on the phone. I did accidentally say it on the phone. And you know that moment when you're like, I was literally like, okay, goodbye, I love you. And I was like, oh, shouldn't say that early. Sorry, goodbye, bye. Putting the phone down like, shit.
Did he say anything?
No, he smiled though. That was really sweet of him. Because these mistakes get
on
made.
The phone? How do you know he
Oh,
smiled?
sorry, video call. Sorry, video call. Which is even worse because I'm there going bright red, like trying to keep my cool, like yeah, I'm just human. I make mistakes, but really I'm like, fuck.
You're like, fuck.
Jesus fucking Christ! Like, what does this mean?
I didn't mean that.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Some good times being had on the video calls. Yeah, that's it. That's the moral of my story. That's my sex update. So yeah, I got a good fucking scene to yesterday, and it's so hard because I still live with my sister and I still live with my partner, and I find it my Rosie, my housemate Rosie, best friend from a long time. He's fucking me, and I'm finding it really hard to focus because all I can do is hear my sister and Rosie like chatting in the corridor, and I'm just like, please, I just want to come. But the amazing thing about Sam is that when we have sex, he's very good at bringing my focus like into the sex. So it's a lot of eye contact, a lot of dirty talk, a lot of like, no, not like what do you need? Like, okay, is this not working? What's the next sex toy that you need? Like, should we change position? And it's so perfect. When I'm really struggling to come, I actually do have to close my eyes a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Like I do.
I get that as well.
But then, oh my God, Sam does this neat motherfucking trick, which also helps me when he knows that I'm struggling to focus. He will cover my eyes and cover my mouth at the same time. And then I'm just like, it's like sensory deprivation, and then I'm like, all I can feel is the sensations. Or sometimes he'll cover my ears as well, and I'm like, holy fucking shit. Like, how did somebody make you in a perfect little sex machine for me? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, literally.
Someone created a monster.
That's such a good thing to do if you're like struggling.
Yeah.
I love the fact that he's so clocked on to like when you aren't able to come, or like, and then he just like knows the exact thing to do.
Yeah.
That's
and it takes me out of my negative thought process of like, oh, I can hear someone in the kitchen, or the kettle's going, or like, oh, maybe like, oh, like, fuck, I can't reach orgasm. And then as soon as someone does something dramatic like that, where, you know, my eyes are covered, my ears are covered, then it just brings you back into the room and back into the sex and back into your body. If breathing doesn't work, because sometimes breathing doesn't work for me either. I don't want to fucking breathe slowly and think about my breath. Like
I don't want to breathe during sex.
Exactly.
No. Being
asphyxiated. Being asphyxiated really does help with my focus, and I think that's a really nice, beautiful segue onto the dom couple, because there was a lot of breath play involved in our play. Hoo-wee! And it's really exciting. So yeah. Can't wait to have them on.
Let's bring them on.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm so fucking excited. Yay.
Tom and Hannah, I'm so excited to welcome you onto the podcast.
Hi. Hey, it's nice to be here.
Oh, it's so good to see you both.
I'm so excited to have you both on the podcast because we've never had anyone on the podcast before that either of us has slept with.
Yeah, which is crazy. So you are breaking first time fucks given history, pop in the virginity of our podcast.
Love it.
Woo! Yeah. So some of you watching on YouTube might be like, well, where are they? We can't see them. But there's some good reasons for this. Please explain.
I think when it comes to
this kind of topic, I think privacy is something that everyone is able to and should be able to have as well. In terms of, for me, for work, it's just one of those things. I try and keep this very, very separate from my work life. But also, I speak outside of Tom and I, the experience of coming on to speak to you guys for me is more about the discussion. It's not about, me then having people speak to me. They're like, oh yeah, I've heard about this, and this. Absolutely not. Just I'm a normal human. Mm-hmm. We're just here to have this really important conversation. So I'm staying off screen because also no makeup today. No makeup.
You look beautiful, baby. Beautiful.
I also have no makeup. But yeah, so I think for me, my line of work, absolutely, it would be. Unfortunately, there's still quite a lot of people that would probably conflate the things that we involve in, like BDSM, especially when it comes to things like sadism, which we'll talk about as well, with potentially not being appropriate to be in certain job roles and things like that, which is really unfortunate that there is still that stigma around it. There are things that are still, certain elements of kink that's still illegal and things like that. So it's, rather than having to have those rather difficult conversations and things like that, sometimes it is unfortunately still necessary to kind of keep a level of anonymity, just because of the ignorance that there is still around sort of what kink and BDSM can look like.
Mm-hmm. Your nickname on the podcast was like the Dom couple.
That's what we've dubbed you as. That's what
the curious fuckers know you as.
Which isn't really fair, because that isn't what your dynamic is, but that was when we were speaking originally. And was it FetLife that we were mainly chatting on, or was it Field?
It was Fet.
FetLife, which is crazy, because it's really hard to meet people on FetLife. For those of you who don't know, FetLife is sort of like the old school kind of like Facebook for fetish and kink.
You put up a post going, oh, I'm out and out, I have a tickling fetish. I saw it come up on my feed and I was like, fuck it, I'm going to message her because I love that. And then I was like, is she going to reply? Yeah, and she replied, and that happened.
That was it. It was. It's really, again, hard to meet people on FetLife, and I'm glad you did, because it was very much as I was going through like a stage of trying to own my fetish, trying to get rid of all that shame and embarrassment that I've told myself all these years, and like, can't tell anyone, and you're weird, and no one's going to be into this. And lo and behold, you message me. And I was like, oh my god, there's some people in my country that want to play that don't seem weird. They seem normal. I was like, oh shit. I wouldn't speak for Tom over there.
It's some weird stuff, yeah.
And we ended up meeting up for it was like a expectations date.
Yeah.
And met up, and it was just really nice. I think what I was nervous about was like, Hannah, you were great. Talking to you was really fine, and I felt really connected to you, because you were like, so it's something tickling is something I want to explore, but it's not necessarily something I'm into sexually, but I enjoy doing it. And I was like, oh my god, this sounds really fun. But I was more nervous about meeting Tom, of course, because being a man in the situation, what if I don't, I fancy Hannah, but what if I don't fancy Tom? Like, that's a big deal for me, because I am more sexually attracted to men than I am, generally speaking, to women, more romantically attracted to women. And as soon as I met you both with the dog, amazing dog, it just like,
the dog came on the date.
Yeah, the dog did.
The dog came to tapas with us.
Aww.
Yeah, and it was beautiful. And all of my fears and worries about meeting a white cis male were just completely, it dissolved, because you were just so nice to chat to, and easy and personable and funny as well. And that was just like the moment where I was like, this is going to work, because I just feel so safe, which was really nice.
For us, it's never assumed that play will happen when you meet someone. Like, you can chat to someone on Field or Fet or even Tinder, whatever. But both of us, I think Reed was one of the exceptions, because we got on so well on that date that I can probably count on one hand the number of times I've gone on a date with someone and then played immediately after.
Yeah, well, it was as soon
normally.
Sorry.
No, it's like you meet someone, you see how it goes, and you know that that's kind of like off the cards unless you opt into it actively and go, yeah, let's go for it. So it's that no pressure kind of situation.
Yeah.
And that was the beautiful thing about what we did, is it just was so spontaneous.
Yeah, it was so much fun. It was like, I think I knew within 5 minutes of meeting you guys, I was like, I want to go back to your house. I feel safe. I feel comfortable. This is perfect.
Yeah.
And
I think that's the difference between like what people think that thing, like things that happen with like kink and BDSM, and like people that do meet up just for like sex and stuff. You kind of assume that, oh yeah, these people are just like, you know, going over to each other's houses, like shagging, and that's it. But like actually, when it comes down to it, like the BDSM community is like the most communicative, like open, like it will always just be so safe and sound. And this is just proof.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's 90% paperwork. Or like we joke about it, but like BDSM is 95% admin. Because it's so much time getting to know people. You know, what do they like, what don't they like, what are their limits, what are their, you know, a disproportionate and really unfortunate number of people have experienced various kinds of trauma in different ways, and so, you know, people are bringing that in different ways to whatever they do, and just trying to make it a safer. So I'm a big fan of like not referring to it as safe, because it's not. Like there's you know, driving a car is not safe, but I think there's a lot of stuff about trying to make it safer and trying to make it trying to make it match what the person wants or what the person expects, and trying to protect everyone involved as well. People need to be really, really sensible and really, you know, communicate exactly what they do and don't want and things like that, because it is fundamentally people can get hurt, not just physically, but can get really hurt emotionally if people don't do it properly.
I think the emotional part is probably what happens most, and then that's even harder to talk about because you're not expecting it, or it will come and creep up on you months later where you go, actually no, that's badly affecting me. It's all very well and good meeting people online, but it can be unsafe, and you have to really tune in and, you know, like vet people's profiles, the way they talk to you, the way they message you, outside of the app and on a more personal basis, as well as when you meet them. If you're not sure, then I would say it's a no for now and revisit it. You have to be 100% sure, and it's the same with consent. You have to be 100% enthusiastic, yes. And that's why it worked so well for us. It was an enthusiastic yes. When we met for the date, we chatted a lot in person about what we were both into, what we like. We also had some fun, talked about normal stuff as well. It wasn't all about the sex, which again makes it really comfortable. And we talked about the safety. So I was like, you guys are clued in. You know what you're talking about. It's not you're just having fun for the sake of it.
Yeah, and I think it's really important because the discussions that we had, blending, you know, the actual elements of BDSM and kink and then normal life as well, you get an idea for that process the opposite way around as well, because what a lot of people are only just coming to realise is that as a dom, you need to consent to who you're playing with as well. You're not just providing this service because everyone's submissive and they want this experience and a dom gives that to them. I've definitely blacklisted people because they make me feel unsafe as a dom. Not because I'm in a vulnerable position, but mainly because I don't trust that they're going to use their safe words. I don't trust that they know what they're getting into. Maybe they're not being honest with me, or actually there's maybe some associated drama around that potentially as well. Someone who has been quite needy and selfish with their kink and, you know, doesn't allow me the aftercare that I need as a dom as well. So that vet has to go both ways.
Would you mind telling us a bit about your dynamic? Because when I met you, Hannah, you were a dom, a mistress, and then spoke about Tom being more dominant than even so. And you guys, you sort of have a very different dynamic personally, but you're both doms. Like, how does it work?
It's a forever battle of stubbornness.
Of dominance.
So we actually met, we've talked about Lou's kink apps, we met on Tinder. Of all of the godforsaken wastelands to meet, we met on Tinder. In our profiles, they'd kind of kept it relatively vague, and we both mentioned the fact that we were, you know, kinky. And so we sat in the pub together and sort of did, again, you know, did all the talking and going through things, and we just got talking on a school night as well. I hasten to add.
Shocking.
I know.
On a school night.
I know. And then so I was like, this beautiful woman. She's really intelligent. She's into all of this stuff. I know. And then and I was like, also, where do you sit on the kink spectrum? She was like, I'm a dom. I'm like, cool. How's that gonna work then? Just and then you said something like, I was like, but I think I'd quite like to kind of explore my sub-side. I was like, yes, get in.
Yeah, but you were the first person who is a male dom that I'd met, and I was like, I feel comfortable around you. Mm-hmm. Genuinely, having been kinky for a very long period of time, the first person I felt safe with, and was like, I could explore that.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
So obviously I'm aware, like, my picture is not going to be on this video. So if you were to imagine like a Venn diagram of privilege, and like I'd be in the middle. So like literally smack bang in the middle. So which is something that I'm acutely aware of in terms of when I talk about kink and when I talk about BDSM, like I've got a very, very privileged position to talk about all of that kind of stuff from. And so I think you've got to be really mindful about it, because a lot of exceptionally problematic people in the kink community, and I think, Florence, you mentioned about it, the BDSM community is safe, and yes and no. I would argue there are a lot of phenomenal people. I mean, I've met some of the most wonderful, obviously you've met some of the most wonderful people as well through it, but it's a community where people are more sexually open. People bring a lot of, I think there's maybe a disproportionate number of people that are really quite open about wanting to explore, their own mental health or things that have happened to them previously and things like that. And there are going to be people that are not necessarily going to respect that, I think. So I'm always quite, I'm always quite critical of the community, and that's not critical like saying it's bad, but I think you've got to be really careful, and you've got to, vet people. You talked about that, Reed. Like, you've got to vet people to the point where I've had messages from people saying to me, I'm looking to play with this person. They've put you down as a reference.
What?
And absolutely, yeah.
So we use it a lot.
I've had events, especially because you've got it's people that you can trust and things like that. And you look at people's Instagrams and things like that, and you'll have people on Instagram say, just because I've tied with somebody or done shibari or something with somebody doesn't mean I necessarily necessarily endorse them or anything like that. Do your own research, and that would be a huge thing for me. Is like, just try where possible to vet people and ask them normal questions. And if they're not going to engage with you as like a normal human being, if they're their first message is something horrific, like using all kinds of slurs or whatever they're using without any permission, it's like no.
I mean, that makes sense, because like you have to put so much faith and trust in someone when it comes to BDSM. You are putting yourself in like the most vulnerable situation, like, especially if you're getting like tied up or whatever. Like, someone could literally do anything to you in that situation. And this is why I guess like quite a lot of people do like end up exploring BDSM like a bit later down the line, when they've like built a relationship with someone, and then they build that foundation of trust. But if you're going into a situation just as like a playtime, like meeting like people for the first time, and like it's very specific to that, then you have to, it makes so much sense what you're saying, because if you don't have that fundamental like foundation of trust from getting to know someone, you need to do it in another way.
I mean, I want to get into the nitty gritty of like what actually went down and what happened.
Do it.
Yeah, I think we need to refresh the curious fucker's mind. Now we can kind of go over the story, but with you both here, which is amazing.
Yeah, because I'm saying it from like my point of view, my biased point of view, which is like, I remember just being like an excited like kid, just like, oh, Florence, I have to tell you about this amazing thing that's just happened. Oh my god, it's so cool. And hopefully you guys can like fill in the gaps in the details.
100%. It was a great experience.
Absolutely.
I mean, it was a flurry as well, because I went back to yours, and I remember just being so overwhelmed with, again, how like nice it felt, how homely and comfortable it felt, but also going into your living room and seeing your apparatus like in the living room and being like, these guys just get it. Like they get it. They know me. They know all of the stuff that I've been fantasizing and feeling all this time that I haven't been able to like put in my damn living room. Well, I respected you, Hannah, because you were like, I don't really drink. Like I'll have one drink, but Tom and I had a drink. And you were like, yeah, let me show you. I don't even know, like your drawers. I remember your big drawers.
Show you the king chest.
Yeah,
it was ridiculous.
Chest. I was like, you have a king chest? Oh my god.
What is in there?
It's an entire chest of drawers now.
Yeah,
it was
massive.
At one point a box, and then it's just become a chest of drawers.
We need to put some hangers on the back of the door as well. So like the top drawer has got things like gags, blindfolds, gaffer tape, gloves, all that sort of stuff. The next drawer down is insertables of varying degrees
and
sizes. Many degrees, yeah. The next one down after that is all impact toys. So there are things like floggers, whips, dragon's tails, baseball bats, that sort of stuff in there.
What's a dragon's tail?
It's like a hybrid whip. It's a bit like a flogger and a whip combined, so it's quite stingy. It's probably our most favourite thing. Well, I definitely absolutely love it for giving and receiving. But yeah, and then there's the bottom drawer, which is like the double height of the rest of the drawers, and it's just full of rope.
You seem so upset about
that.
It's just rope. So
it's just rope. Rope and cling film.
So I'm really, really into shibari and, like Japanese rope bondage. And that's kind of, I guess, as much as anything is like one of my big things. And I, regularly go and practice over at anatomy and things like that. And so over at the studios. So yes, we've got a ridiculous volume of rope. I should probably do a bit of an audit at some point.
But I just kind of remember you coming in, Reed, and me being like, right, okay, if this is kind of what you want to do, like in this play session, please choose what you want out of the drawer.
Yeah, I felt like I was a kid in a candy store. I was like,
it's like a pick and mix. I want
everything. Because I remember, Tom, you sat in the living room and you were like, okay, go with Hannah and go pick out some things that you want to play with. And then I was just like, I want to try that one, and then let's try that one. And
we literally decimated the drawer, took it all in the living room, and hardly used any of it.
She's walking in like, just can't carry it all.
Because before then I hadn't really done a lot with impact play. And it was something that we were talking about. Again, we didn't really get there. I think you had your big armchair. You're like, I can't remember what you call it. Like the
snuggle chair.
Snuggle chair.
Yeah.
But really, it's a chair of hell. The other amazing thing, Tom, was when you mentioned about bags. And I was like, bags? And you're like, I've just bought a whole new reel of bags. And I was like, oh my God. And you were so excited. And I was excited for you. And I was like, I haven't played with breath play like that. Of course I've been choked. I've been choked in like unsafe situations, drunk with a partner, which is not good. And you both really taught me the safety around choking as well. And now I'm aware of it and I teach people. I've taught Sam and he knows how to. I can feel it when he goes to choke me. I can feel him adjusting his hand and I'm like, yes.
That makes me so happy.
So appreciative. So with the bag, that was fascinating. I was like, I want to have a go with the bag. Like, I feel safe with you guys. And we were already doing a little bit here and there of, I think this is either before or during, where we're all naked. We've all started, I'm being held down by Tom. I'm being fucked with a dildo from Hannah. Like, there's a lot going on. I'm being tickled. I'm just like getting double teamed, and there's so much going on, and I'm just like in absolute heaven bliss, going like, what the fuck is happening?
You've got no idea which way is up, right?
Yeah, and that's what's so beautiful about it. And I'm just like, it's just, it was magical. It was magical. It was my princess moment.
The thing is, we had this, there's a nice progression to that. We were tickling you and restraining you, which makes breathing really fucking difficult to start with.
Yes.
And then we start putting hands over your mouth, and then we start putting bags over your head.
Yeah.
And suddenly it goes from, a little bit of, I can't breathe, to, fuck, I can't breathe.
Pure panic. And I love fear, and I love panic, and I love that Tom was really into the panic part.
So that's, probably my biggest kink.
Same.
Is fear. Fear and So I would, obviously we use kind of dom as a shorthand, but actually I'd identify as a sadist. That's kind of that's probably my preferred play style for most people.
Nice.
And yeah, certainly like the fear element and kind of watching people cry, things like that. But like I really enjoy the fear. I think it's a lot to do with like that intensity of connection. And I know I said and there'll be people listening who are just like, that, no, I don't get that, that's really weird. But I guess when you see somebody at their kind of most vulnerable, just completely exposed, and to the point where they are like completely in tears or completely just losing control, there's something really intimate about that.
Yeah, and sexy. I mean, as like a submissive
intimate
masochist, that's what I think about. That's what turns me on, is the fear, the panic, the crying, the begging for it to stop. That's what turns me on from my side. I think a lot of people might go like, oh, well, he's a sadist. Of course, he likes, he's a man. He likes all these like really extreme things. And it's like, again, we can't help the things that turn us on most of the time. Most of the time, they're buried in shame and things that we've pushed away, or things that we've tried again. Because especially as a bloke, we're told not to hurt people, we're told not to like make people cry, but yeah, that's the thing that turns us on most of all, and we're allowed to explore that in a safe environment.
It's also like, for us, like the interaction that we had really stood out for me in terms of obviously the spontaneity and bits and pieces like that, but also the level of vulnerability that was displayed is massive. And for me, again, coming back to that vetting process, you can be that honest with me. I know that you could play at the intensity that I prefer to play at, because Tom and I both have definitely cultivated a style of play that is intense.
Super intense.
It's really intense. Even our dynamic, we don't have a soft dynamic at all between us. The majority
not
of
during
our
play. Outside, it's not like that all the time, I promise.
No, it depends how much you piss me off, really, to be honest. But like our play dynamic, even without it being like, oh, we're setting up a scene for the night, like any spontaneous play is pretty much in the remit of being C&C or consensual, non-consensual for the majority of our dynamic, which, as you're saying, like trying to get around that shame element of being like, actually, this is what I want, coming from someone who's a top and a dom, going, actually, do you know what? I want to explore being potentially a bottom, submissive, and going, but how are people going to judge that as well?
Yeah.
Like, people know that I'm a top. Suddenly, they see me getting kicked across a room and being like, is she really a top? Is she, really? I don't see it personally. I don't see it. So I kind of get that unraveling as well of the conceptions that you have about yourself and your sexuality.
I'm intrigued to see like how it is having that dynamic together, like, so you're submissive and you're dominant, Tom, in your relationship, but how is it then playing with other people and then both being dominant? How does that work?
Absolute clusterfuck. Because we both egg each other on as well. And you're like, oh, you're doing that thing. And also there's no, I think, there's no
I would
break.
disagree. I'm going to disagree. I'm going to say we tend to play with bratty masochists.
Does help.
I don't egg you on. The brats egg me on, and then they egg you on.
Yeah, I think when we play together, we've been doing it a while now, so it complements each other quite well, and we have different things, different things that we do enjoy. It's not identical to stuff that we're into at all. So
absolutely not.
Yeah, so there's different elements of that as well. And I guess, so we can both be doing things to antagonise or whatever, antagonise the bottom or sub, but also by the same token, one person can kind of be keeping an eye as well. So that's also quite handy if you're, because so much of it is about non-verbal cues as well. So, if I'm doing, say, impact, Hannah can be checking and going, they're starting to look a little bit like they're having a bit of a wobble, so yeah, it works really well, and like we really enjoy it. But it's quite tense. I mean, because there is no break.
Yeah, no, there was no break, but I really appreciated, and I know it's common sense, but for a lot of people it isn't when they're playing, because it can just be like all the time. But there were definite times where, Hannah, you were like, okay, stop, Reed, are you okay? And it was like a full moment of stop and checking in. And because, again, we're playing with breath play or playing with situations where my brain is not really functioning properly. Sometimes I don't even know if I want to stop or whether or not I should stop. So having somebody...
it's a really hard line to pull, isn't it? When you're actually in that position of, I don't really know if my body is saying something different to my brain or not.
Yeah.
Like you get all that physiological response, especially with stuff like breath play and tickling, because it's just
Adrenaline.
fight or flight.
Yeah, for sure.
And you might be like, oh no, I want to stay here because this is fun, this is exciting, and I'm enjoying it. But actually, 5 more minutes and you're going to tip over the edge and start crashing really badly.
Yeah, and funnily enough, like, I was very honest about where my mental health was at, and I felt like I could be honest.
Yeah.
And after our play, when we did do our wind down and we did do the cuddle sofa and the aftercare dog, and it was just so lovely, I did actually start feeling prangs of panic attack. Because again, my body had been pushed to fight or flight response, and my mind, my mind was fine, but my obviously something in the back of my mind was going, you're not really safe here. I think we're in a bit of a tricky situation, and I started feeling a panic attack come on. But you guys were so perfect in that, where I was just like, hey, I've got anxiety, I feel like a panic attack's coming on, and you were just like, whatever you need, take as much time as you want. Here's the weighted blanket, which is fascinating.
I love it. I don't think I could live without one now.
Yeah, and just the ability to be able to verbalize that and not feel like, oh Christ, don't know what to do in this situation. You were just like, yeah, it's all calm, it's all cool. Like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. That's fine. I just felt so safe, and it didn't ruin the time. Like, it was very controllable.
No.
I managed to control a potential panic attack, and it was just, again, that was nice as well. That was also a moment of like, wow, I could have had a panic attack, but I stopped it. I felt safe enough to stop it, and now if the situation happens again, I know that I'm going to be okay because I can stop it.
What was your guys' favourite moment of the session with Reed? Like, what really stood out for you both?
Okay, so my favourite part of the play, which I masturbate to quite a bit, and
love to know this.
Thank you,
my clit, and it's like, no, my clit's so sore. And it kind of revolves around safe words and things, but it's the part where I got pushed to my absolute limits and I couldn't take it anymore, and that's the bit that turns me on the most. Is where I think, Tom, I can't remember if I was tied up, but you were holding me down from behind, so I think I'm on my knees, and you're sort of like sandwiched around me, holding me down, and I've got Hannah tickling me real hard, and like one of my favorite spots is on my ribs, and you were just doing this so fucking hard on my rib, but I do remember screaming, so maybe it wasn't a hand over her mouth. I do remember like yelling really loudly, and that was when I was like, oh my god, I can't take it anymore. And that's my favorite bit. It's just that bit of being so like, this is torture, this is too much, I cannot handle this, and I need to get out of this situation. And that's the bit that I masturbate over quite often. And that was it. So
I'm just going to like casually every now and then in the middle of nothing just text you and be like, hey Reed, guess what?
Do you remember that time?
even our WhatsApp group, and you named
Instant
it.
turn on.
Our WhatsApp group title is like tickle. Every time that comes up, I'm triggered and I'm like, okay, hi, hello, and I get like a fucking pussy gallop every time I read that title. I'm like, fuck me. So yeah, thank you very much. That was wonderful. Best experience.
You are most welcome.
It really was.
That's gonna be what I think of when I like, just before I die, my life is flashing before me. It's that moment. You've made it.
I'll take that as the highest form of compliment.
You made it to the death reel.
Yeah, that is a pretty big one. That is a pretty big
death
one.
reel.
To go back to when, when I'm unable to verbally say, hey, I need a break, there was a moment as well, Hannah, where you were like, remember, and you made eye contact with me, and you were like, remember, if you can't say anything, remember to tap if you want out. And that was because, again, when you're in that panic state, all your safe words kind of go out the window, and you do need to be reminded, so that when I was suffocating, in the most pleasurable, fearful way. I can tap. And there was a moment where the bag was on my head and I was like, I can't take this anymore. I did tap and you took it off immediately. There was no time between that where I could panic even more. It was off. And that again.
And there's also, there doesn't have to be questions asked on that. So for me, this is quite a big thing, and it comes from probably some of my experience and having learned from going from topping to bottoming and being then in a submissive space, is actually verbal communication is shit in BDSM. It really, really is, because you've obviously got safe words. People have like ridiculous safe words. They have normal safe words. They have traffic light systems, numbers systems. We use mercy and things like this. But actually, for me, if I'm subbing, I go nonverbal, fully nonverbal, which means that suddenly you don't have any of that, which means you're looking for so much more. And that's particularly probably why I enjoy co-doming with Tom. And I enjoyed the session where you obviously were getting to the point of going, oh, I probably need to tap out. You don't know this, but I can see it. And for me, part of this, coming back to your original question of what was the best bit of the scene, for me was going, I've spotted that, and now I'm going to take you to the other side of dominance, which is caring, maternal, that kind of vibe, which is where, for me, the psychological play between fear, terror, and reconciliation come. That's probably for me one of the most fulfilling aspects for myself.
It was lovely.
And it's that non-verbal stuff is so important. And it's it's how you negotiate consent changing in a scene potentially as well.
Because it does, and it can. And even
oh my God, absolutely.
And I think a lot of people feel like it's a failure if you've verbally said, I want to do this, this and this, or you've planned it, and then you're like, actually, I don't want to do it anymore. And it's not a failure. It's just...
it's like... It happens, and lots of things can change emotionally, in terms of just even mood. Like I might say to Tom, absolutely, I want you to fist my pussy so hard that I gush everywhere. And then you put a finger in me and I'm like, get the fuck away from me. No, I don't want this. And that can be like 2 minutes. That could be a change in 2 minutes. And it's really easy for people to forget in play that you can say no.
Yeah,
you can change your mind, and that's absolutely fine.
You shouldn't have to apologise for that. Like, again, going back to the whole like rope thing, I've done loads of, and people are like, oh, I'm really sorry, like I wasn't able to do this, or and I'm like, why on earth are you apologising? Like,
I mean, and we had it in that where Reed started to apologise for going, I can't do any more tickling, and we were like, well, that's absolutely fine. Don't, like, if you can't take any more, you can't take any more. And I know Tom will say the same on this, like my pleasure isn't my limit of what I can do to someone. Tom's really hard on this, you work to the limits of the person that you're playing with. It's about that reactive element. It's not, in terms of impact, it's not, I enjoy playing with the person I can hit the hardest.
Yeah.
Because that's fucked up in a slightly different way for me. It's more of I get to manipulate where you sit in this play scene. I get to push. I get to come off the accelerator as well. And that sub, bottom, whoever, being happy about that, that's where actually the fulfillment comes from.
I think also it's really, obviously, and very rightly so, we spend a lot of time talking about consent from the sub, bottom, you use the terms interchangeably, consent from the sub, their limits and things like that. But actually, there's also, people do get, and I get top drop as well. So, post scene, I can get some really quite, can get a lot of those similar feelings, especially around shame and guilt and things like that. And I need to have that affirmation that actually what I did was okay. And so some of the worst post-scene experiences I've had is actually people turning around going, no, like I didn't want to keep doing that, but I kept doing that because I knew that you enjoyed it. And I'm just like and yeah, for me, like that sends me into a really, because I'm there going, I should have spotted that, I should have noticed. And actually, the sub has a huge amount of responsibility to communicate accurately, because we're not, as tops, I'm not a mind reader. You'll give me a list of limits, you'll give me a list of things that you want to do on the day or don't want to do on the day. You've got your safe words, you've got whatever else it is, your non-verbal cues and all the things that should be pre-negotiated. But things change on the day. Like, and you might think that you're up for one thing and you're not. And if you'll go, oh, well, I've come round to this person's house and I've said that I'm going to do X, Y, Z, and we've been talking about it and, sexy chat for like the last couple of weeks that we're going to do this thing. I've got to go through with it because otherwise I'm a failure. And then that's bad for you. That's really shitty for me because effectively I've just been, unwittingly party to committing, a consent violation because that's not what you wanted. Absolutely. And, the effect that has, and I have had that situation, the effect that's had on me has been huge. And so, trusting people, playing with people and trusting that they will use their safe words and things like that is huge.
I would love to ask you both the notorious fucks given question, which is your fuck off stories. Who's going first?
I'll go first because I think mine's actually not as good as Tom's. So this was relatively recently, and this was between us. So no bars held here. You do I'm going to scroll through the depths of the internet for some really dirty shit. The sort of stuff where you come and you're like, fuck, I hate myself. I feel horrendous. Post-nut shame and clarity hits you hard in the face. You're like, close the tabs. So just scrolling through, and I had thumbs at work, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to send this. I want to try this. So we get home, and it involves water sports. So it's quite a big kink of mine for a multitude of reasons, primarily because it hits that shame, fear, taboo kind of vibe.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, do you know what? I think it would be so hot and I'd be so turned on if you peed in my ass.
Oh.
Yeah. So we were like, okay, we're gonna set this up. We're gonna have gaffer tape to hold my butt open. We're gonna make sure like there's the stuff in the bathroom so it's nice and warm and comfy. We can stay in there for a bit and it just descend into messy chaos, etc. So got going, started off to the point where I could get a little bit of a butthole gape going on, and we were like, right, crack on, go. And Tom starts pissing on my asshole, and I just absolutely fucking collapse into this fit of giggles, and I couldn't stop. It was just, I'm like, it tickles so fucking bad. You're like, this is meant to be like super sexy, super hot, dirty. I'm like, fuck me, my ass is just tickling so badly. We need to stop. And
I'm loving this story because this hits my face. You should have tied it down.
All of it. All of it.
Making notes.
But it's one of those things. I'm like, oh, that fantasy, and I'm like, maybe that was just a fantasy I shouldn't have touched.
Ruined.
Because it was just so ruined.
But also, like, for context, I have the world's smallest bladder, so I'm there at work. I'm there at work going, oh, I need to hydrate, make sure I'm really well hydrated. Completely overshot it. I was like, right, I've either got to go to the toilet just before I leave, or no, I can't. I've got to drive. So I'm driving home as quickly as I can. I'm going to absolutely wet myself. Get into the house. I'm like, okay, so now I've somehow got to get hard. It's like all I desperately want to do is just go to the toilet. I'm like, we are doing this now. It's not safe. Get in the bathroom now because you've got a 5-minute window before my bladder ruptures. And that's the hot truth. It's just, it's 90% admin. 90% admin.
Yeah. I feel like there's probably quite a lot of things out there that you think in theory is going to be so hot, but then when you actually do it in reality, you're like, oh, this really wasn't what I thought it was going to be.
I'm sure that's most fantasies. That is most fantasies for me.
Reed, are you going to try that out now, the tickly bumhole?
I mean, my bumhole says no, but my mind says yes.
that famous R&B song.
I mean, never say never. Gotta never say never.
We bought a speculum since. We have bought a speculum since, so I think that's the way to go.
Tom, what is your fuck off story?
So mine's not actually kink. This is kind of my pre-kink days, but it is just one of my favourite stories. So I was still at university at this point, and met a wonderful person, and chatting away. Went back to her place. and shared house, so shut the door, all fine. And we get down to it, and she said, she was like, "Oh, do you want to try some anal?" And at this point, I was like, "Oh, this is a bit exotic. It's a bit exciting. Absolutely, yeah. Let's try some anal." All going absolutely fine, going swimmingly. Except this person had a cat. Now it turned out that the cat had got locked in the room with us, and the cat was under the bed.
Oh.
The cat did not appreciate what I was doing to its owner. It did not. So out of the corner of my right eye, and I will I see the cat. I'm like, oh, it's a cat. I mean, I've been watched by a weirdo. It's fine. The cat looks at me, goes, leaps at me like something from the seventh circle of hell, physically attaches to my shoulder.
Oh my god.
Oh, it gets better. Physically attaches to my shoulder. I'm like, okay, well, cat's attached to me now. At which point, understandably, I very rapidly withdraw from this young lady's bumhole. Yeah, we can see where this is going. She shits herself all over the bed.
Oh,
so I'm there with a cat still attached to me, with a large-ish pile of poop in front of me on the bed, and this person looking over their shoulder at me with a level of mortified shame that nowadays would turn me on, but at that point was just... And I just remember going, are you okay? And she was just there, and I was like, look, can I help? Can I do anything? She was like, just go. And I was like, are you sure? She was like, go. And so I did. I respect her. I moved the cat. I put on my clothes and I left. We did not speak. After that.
No.
Yeah. So I mean, that was only our third date. So it wasn't a longer term relationship, but
wow.
Yeah. So
that
was
a
intense.
fuck off story for sure.
Yeah.
That is certainly a fuck off story. That might not as good as Sophie Anderson's, but almost.
I'm never gonna compete. Like, not even in the same.
No one
ballpark.
can.
No one can. There will be someone in the world, and we hope you hear this message, to compete in our fuck off story. Because
you should host a competition for it. You really should host a competition for it.
Thank you both for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It was amazing to hear from you.
I'm like sweaty and I'm excited and I've got all my adrenaline and excitement back and my fucking pussy's like got a massive wide on. So like I'm so grateful for this. Thank you. It's been so lovely. And I also can't wait for my boyfriend to hear it as well and like hopefully like be a part of this and enjoy it with me. So yeah, it's very exciting.
Yeah. Wow, what a fucking episode.
Wow.
I feel like my mind has been bamboozled as well with all like the knowledgeable consent talk and all the kind of admin side of BDSM as well.
Yeah, I'm really proud of them for two people who don't use their voices and who don't talk on podcasts or on social media. That I'm so proud about like the knowledge that they had and how well they explained a lot of the stuff in there, because again I think BDSM we just like, oh yeah, it's really cool, but there's a lot to think about if you are playing in it, again if you're experienced players as they call it.
Yeah. How are you feeling after like talking to them again?
Like energized, excited. I'm like ready to like start my day. I'm like, whoa, let's go. I want to play. I want to have fun. I'm very horny, of course. And yeah, like
you're going to call up Sam now.
Yeah. See what he's up to. Actually.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of, I'm gonna see. Okay, let me put that pin. And also quite like therapeutic and cathartic. It was really nice seeing them again and hearing things from their point of view. And we still chat on WhatsApp, but like life gets in the way and we don't chat as much as I want to, as we want to. And also being so honest about the play that I've wanted, and like of course with my tickling fetish and not being able to like really verbalize that. and be that explicit is really therapeutic. Like, I feel like, fuck, I can be, like, I'm me again. I can be me. I'm not fucking in the shadows, cast away in shame about all my horrific fantasies. I'm like, yeah, man, just get it out there and open. I feel so good about it, you know?
Nice.
What about you? Was anything a bit shocking for you? Was it okay?
No, it was great. It was great to get like a deeper insight into that whole situation, because when I first heard it, I was like, whoa, my words are gone. I don't even know what to say to this.
It's like, are you okay, hon? Are you
okay, hon? Okay, bags over your head. Okay, cool.
Yeah, fuck.
But that was cool. But so if anyone, this episode resonated with you and you feel the urge to share it with the world, please talk to your friends about this podcast. Please share this episode with them. Share it like you have, I was like going to say, like you have an STI and you're just going to go around fucking everyone and like,
spreading my STI disease.
Spread it around. Spread it like love.
Yes, like
that's
love. Spread it like your open legs with love. And of course, if you want to check us out on Instagram, please do, at Come Curious, as well as our personal accounts, Read Amber X and Florence Bark. And you can check this whole episode out on YouTube. If you're listening to it on your morning commute, you absolute pervert, you can also watch Florence's expressions of horror throughout this whole thing on YouTube.
Was that what my face was like?
No, you were great. You were like sitting there like,
I was like, oh, interesting. Nice. Cool.
Nice one.
And as always, please remember to give us a rating and a review, because this helps so much with the podcast and getting us into more people's ear holes. And you know how important these conversations are to have with people and for people to listen to. Let's reboot the world with sex positivity.
I think that we're doing how are we doing the longest outro for like the longest episode here as well?
I don't know, like let's go.
Let's go. We love you all.
See you next Thursday, Curious Buggers. Bye.
Play safe, play safer.